David Andrew Wiebe Interviews and Music Business Podcast, Episode 36. Welcome to the show. Towards the end of 2011, I had the chance to interview Todd Henry from Accidental Creative. We never got to finish the interview at that point, so I put it on the back burner for a while, but I was contacted by Todd's assistant earlier this year in 2013 to finish up the interview. What can I say? Sometimes persistence pays off. I had another great chat with Todd, confident that I had a great interview to pass along to you guys, my listeners. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that the audio from our first conversation was corrupted. You could hear my voice, but it was scratchy and distorted, and Todd's voice was barely audible. At first, I was confident that I could find a solution at the editing stage. I tried some mastering and EQ tricks. I tried slicing up the audio and boosting Todd's levels. I tried evening things out with the Levelator, which is one of my favorite podcasting tools. And I even tried making some adjustments within the Skype platform. Unfortunately, nothing worked. I hate to admit defeat, but unfortunately there was nothing more I could do. So I'd like to apologize to you, the listener, as well as Todd. He took time out of his busy schedule to be on the show, and I could not get the audio from our first conversation up to par for this episode. You may recall that I also had audio issues with the interview I did with Chris Nash early on, though that was a different kind of problem entirely. I like Skype, and it does deliver better audio quality than my phone, but apparently sometimes things can still get messed up. At some point, I hope to get the first part of our interview transcribed so that you can read it online, but that's not a promise. I'm not sure if the audio is good enough even to do that, so. On the upside, the second part of our conversation is completely intact, loud and clear, so we're going to get right into that, and I will be back for the closing segment. If you have any questions or comments regarding this podcast, send an email to comments@daw-music.com. So, I think you could probably speak to this because your book has been out for a while, but obviously with things moving from sort of the physical to the digital these days, whether it be music or books or magazines or newspapers, do you find that sales sort of get siphoned off by the accessibility of the digital, or do you find that if you just create a good enough product that people will just want it anyway?
I think that's a great question. As far as the specific genre that I'm in, with writing mostly books targeted at business professionals, people who are in the workplace, I'm finding that a lot of people actually prefer the hardcover. They want to pick up the book and physically hold it, or they want to have it for their team, or they want to do so. In that space, I'm finding that physical books, physical distribution, seem to, in many ways, be the preferred method of distributing, which is really interesting. Now, I have many friends who write in different genres, who write maybe fiction or write things that are maybe less targeted at the business audience, and their numbers are almost exactly the opposite. It's mostly ebooks they're selling, and they're selling some of the hard copies of the book. And I think that there's an undeniable trend toward digital distribution, but there are things that haven't yet been answered, like how do we give away digital books, right? That's a real challenge. I know on a personal level, when I go in or I speak to a company or at a conference or something like that, like there's no way for them to give a copy of my book to all of the employees in attendance. They can, but they have to do it like one book at a time, right? They have to go in and like literally on Amazon gift it to every individual or on iTunes or whatever. It's just there's no good way to do that. And so I don't think physical books are going to go away. I think they're just going to take on a different level of importance. I think that I mostly do not buy physical books anymore. I almost read everything digitally, on Kindle. But I do still occasionally buy physical books. And when I do, it's usually because I have the intent that at some point I'm going to be giving this book to someone else, or I want to share it with someone. Or in my case, a lot of times I buy books because I want my sons or my daughter to have them at some point. I want them to read these same books. And so that's kind of the filter that I go through. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but I do definitely think there's an undeniable trend toward digital, but I don't know I don't think anybody really knows exactly what that means yet.
Yeah, that's what my research has shown as well, is that digital was initially thought to replace kind of physical product, but that hasn't actually happened yet.
Yeah, and I think for some people, a lot of people would say, well, that's because some people are late adopters, they haven't adopted the technology yet. I think some people just books. And that's just the way it's going to be for them. And as a result, I mean, it's like some people, stuck with vinyl, because they just preferred vinyl when they were listening to music. Some people prefer CDs over, I don't get that. Like, but some people do. And it's like, they like to have that physical manifestation of the music right there that they can look at. They can, that's fine. I mean, I think it's going to be more expensive to go that route eventually, if you want a physical product, but,
Right.
Because it's not going to be created in mass, but I think that it'll always be there as an option for people.
Mm-hmm. So when I first started podcasting, people were sort of saying, this is the end of podcasting, it's dying. And now we're kind of in this age where people are starting to say, this is a podcast renaissance, it's alive again. So what are your thoughts on that, and what are your thoughts on podcasting?
So I'm curious, when did you start podcasting?
2009.
Okay, because when I started podcasting in 2005, I was hearing, oh, it's the end of podcasting. This is just a temporary fad. So it's funny that you say that, because I thought I was getting in on the tail end of this thing that was starting up, and that was in 2005. I think podcasting, personally, I feel like podcasting is probably the best and most direct mechanism to forge relationship with an audience, because you can't, when it's you speaking into a microphone, you can't hide. You can hide behind your language if you're blogging, right? Or you can hide,
Yes.
you can position yourself, you can pretend to be somebody you're not. When you're podcasting, there's a level of authenticity involved that makes it really difficult to hide. And I think that's a reason why some podcasts take off and others don't. I think that the real key and fundamental elements that make a podcast successful are, is it entertaining? And by entertaining, I don't mean, is it funny, or is it, it could be funny, of course, but does it hold my attention? Is it something that's poignant, that's precise, that holds my attention? I think that's one of the key factors. Number two, is it authentic? Do I get a sense when I'm listening to this that the people who are a part of this are being themselves, and I'm getting some kind of insight into who they are and what they like and what they think? And that's why, some podcasts, like extreme examples, right? You have a lot of comedy podcasts that do extremely well because you feel like you're getting an inside view of this comedian's life, right? And it's like you're spending time with them. But on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, something like Marketplace, which is of course a radio show, but then they do the podcast. The reason why the podcast, I think, is so popular is because they take a very almost irreverent and just authentic, bare bones approach to how they report what's going on in the marketplace, right? And it just feels very authentic and real. And so other like tech shows like, This Week in Tech, or, Mac Break Weekly and shows like that. I think it's the same thing. You have this group of personalities who are just talking authentically about their thoughts and making observations. And so it almost feels like you're invited into the conversation. And I think that we are at the very beginning of, like you say, a podcast renaissance. I think that we're going to experience over the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to experience that this medium of audio becomes more and more important. People talked about video for a while. Oh, it's going to be video. It's going to be video. But video is not as consumable, right?
Yeah.
I think fewer people are sitting in front of screens for an extended period of time where they're willing and able to sit and devote their attention to things. But I think that in the car, on the train, walking, exercising, it's just so much easier to consume audio. And so I think that there's a huge future in producing audio. Personally, at least that's where I'm putting most of my attention.
Do you think that sort of underscores the need for a few different mediums? Like, I know Pat Flynn's kind of a proponent of this, but like a content marketing triangle where there's audio, blogging, and video.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I wouldn't say that you should, exclusively focus on one thing, but I would say like if you find that you're good at this audio thing, and some people aren't good at this audio thing. Some people just, I've heard some podcasts and I'm thinking like, dude, you should just not do this anymore, right? This is not going to work for you. Stick to writing, and that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just like, I'm not very good at video. And some people are just great at video. They're great on camera. I've tried it before. It just doesn't work for me. Now I can get up and speak to an audience, but that's a different thing from trying to be good on video. I'm not that great on video, So I've shied away from video, and I write and I audio podcast, and that's what I do. And I've found that there's been really effective mediums. So I would say do what you're good at, and don't do something just because everybody says you should do it. If you're really bad at doing audio, don't do it just because you think it's going to be a big thing, right? Focus on what you're really good at, because at the end of the day, you want to create compelling content that other people are going to want to spread. And if your stuff isn't good, they're not going to want to spread it, right? Mm-hmm. So.
There's kind of this phrase going around that the new music industry is engagement, and of course, I'm referring to social media. Have you found that to be kind of a key marketing tool for your efforts as well?
It is, but not. I mean, I would say, okay, so I don't focus on building big social media numbers. Okay, so. And a lot of people do, and that's not. I mean, I also know that by saying that, I could be easily, people could look at that and say, oh, well, you're saying that because you don't have big social media numbers, right? But that it really is the case that I've always been more interested in having smaller numbers of highly engaged people than just going after numbers. Yeah. And what's funny is that when my first book came out, people were really mobilized to buy it because it wasn't just large numbers. I mean, I pretty routinely clean people from my mailing list, and I have a mailing list with thousands and thousands of people on it, and I'm routinely cleaning it out. If somebody hasn't opened an email from me in months and months and months, I don't want them on the mailing list, right? Because I feel like I'm just spamming them at that point. If they're not opening my email, if they're just deleting it right away, I don't want to keep sending them email. Because I want people who are really interested in hearing from me and really want to hear what I have to say. And same with, social stuff and all that. I think it has to be about conversation. It has to be about observation and not about numbers. It has to be about really engaging with people. And I think that's where a lot of folks get it wrong. It's not just about numbers, because numbers don't mean anything. There are a lot of people who have really big numbers, but the ROI on their numbers is not good because they're not engaging with people. They're just numbers. They're passive. They're not fans. They're just people who have at some point clicked follow, but they don't pay attention to what you say. And that it's all about effectiveness, not just about numbers.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. So one of the commonalities I've noticed with a lot of people who've kind of created success, at least from a worldly perspective, is that they have sacrificed many things. And so do you think it's kind of an important thing to like sacrifice TV, sleep, entertainment if necessary?
Yeah, everything's about choice, right? So at the end of the day, you will have navigated a series of choices that will have determined your effectiveness that day. So when you say yes to something, it always means you're saying no to something else. So me right now sitting down talking with you doing this interview is me saying no to other things I could be doing right now. So you have to ask yourself, where can I most valuably invest my time, my focus, my energy right now, or my assets, right? Where can I most valuably invest those things? Which means I'm saying yes to something, but I'm saying no to other things. Mm-hmm. And I think people who get in trouble are people who stop asking that question. What's the best place for me to focus, to invest my focus, my assets, my time, my energy, and be asking that continually, all day long. Because the thing is, we get in trouble because we stop asking those questions. And I don't consider giving up large amounts of TV or gaming or something like that. I don't consider that a sacrifice, because those things haven't really ever. I haven't really ever seen those as having a high return.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, there's nothing wrong with doing those things strategically. Just make a choice about it and say, okay, for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to watch TV, and that's totally. And I do that in the evenings. Like I will, at the end of the day, if I'm just completely fried, I'll say, I want to do something mindless, and I'll watch The Daily Show or something, right? And I'll just, which I DVR so I can do it on my own time, or like when I'm working out or something. Like sometimes I'll do that, but sometimes I'll watch TED Talks, or I'll read, or I'll do something else while I'm But it's all about being choiceful, and every time you say, it's like full cost accounting, right? It's true cost economics. Every decision you make has hidden impact that you're not aware of, and you have to take into account all of the impact of the choices that you make. So saying yes automatically means saying no. What are you saying no to as a result of saying yes to something else? And as long as you can live with those decisions, great. If you can say, hey, I'm going to watch 3 hours of TV tonight, and you're comfortable with what that means about the things that you're choosing not to do, great. But don't just do it by default. Make those choices.
Those are some great thoughts. So why don't you tell us where people can find you online?
So the best place to find me is accidentalcreative.com. You can also find me on my personal site, which is toddhenry.com, 2 Ds, TODDHENRY, Henry.com.
Excellent. Here's your opportunity to rant and rave freely. Are there any other questions I should have asked?
No, I think you covered it.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks so much, and good luck.
This podcast is a part of the Blueberry Network. You can find this and other great podcasts at blueberry.com. That's blueberry with no e's.com.
And we're back with today's closing segment. I hope you enjoyed this interview, despite the fact that we're missing part of it. In our first conversation, I had the chance to ask Todd about his trip to South Africa, about Accidental Creative, about the AC podcast and his book, Creating Focus, his involvement with music, the music industry, and a couple of other topics. Again, I apologize that you don't get to hear it. I would encourage you to go to accidentalcreative.com, subscribe to Todd's podcast, and check out his book as well. He's done a lot of great interviews on his show, and he also has an archive of some awesome articles that you can peruse. Before I wrap up for today, I wanted to take a moment to let you know about the next episode. Originally, Anna and I got together to record an intro and closing segment for this episode, but what was meant to be a 40-minute conversation ballooned into 1.5 hours, and it just didn't seem right putting that at the front and end of this particular episode. So although I am going to separate the content into 2 episodes, I'm probably going to be releasing them back to back anyway. I haven't really done that before, but there is some time-sensitive information that I discussed with Anna, and I have a couple more interviews to roll out, so it doesn't seem right making you wait for that. It's been a while since an episode has run under 45 minutes, but I don't have a lot of time to put towards developing another feature here, so I'm gonna have to put a lid on my perfectionist side and instead get this out there for everybody that has been waiting for it. As always, you can send us comments to comments@daw-music.com. Our website for the podcast is at dawcast.com, dawcast.com. If you want to delve into some of the tools I personally used and endorse, you can check out the resources page on the website as well. So until next time, I'm David Andrew Wiebe.
You've been listening to the David Andrew Wiebe Interviews and Music Business Podcast, broadcasting from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. This has been a Red Flame production. To learn more about Red Flame, go to redflamerecords.com.